Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe. I love that you guys are sharing this with people. That's how we get the word out. I'm really excited for our guest today. I've known Marcus since I started with the Arte Syndicate about 4 years ago. I don't know, time flies. It's been a while, and he's been an incredible influence. Has an incredible book out that I remember reading called Overcoming Adversity way a long time ago. Now he's an international speaker. I think he probably was then too. He's a TEDx speaker, doing some incredible things coast to coast. He's starting an apparel brand. Like, this guy's doing it all. So I'm really excited for him to spend some time with us and give you guys some amazing tips and tricks on how to overcome adversity and do actions, not words, which he can touch a little bit about. So thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This has been a long time coming. We've known each other since 2018, and it's neat to see, like you said, time flies, and it's neat to see how everybody's developed and this rising tide that rises all ships. I love it.
Love it. That's so cool. So tell us a little bit about, let's go back to your story a little bit. What got you into overcoming adversity? What got you into, I can't get the name, Acta Non Verba. There we go.
Acta Non Verba. And like you said, the book and the TEDx are called The Gift of Adversity.
Yes.
The idea is, we'll give a little bit of my stories because there has to be context. I joined the military, and at 40 years old, I was preparing to deploy with the light infantry in 2012. And I ruptured a disc in my neck from all of that training. During the surgery that followed, I died on the table twice. And then when I woke up in the ICU, the surgeons they say, the good news is you get to live to tell the tale. The bad news is this is what your life's going to be. So at 40, in my mind, I thought that it meant when you're young, 40 seems old. And at 40, I should already have all this stuff figured out. I should already have this great business. I should have all this retirement. I should have 2.5 kids, whatever. But if there are entrepreneurs listening, and I know that there are, you understand that there's what we plan, there's what we fear, and then there's what actually happens. And sometimes they are not the same, which is good and bad. The reality is, when you're in a place like that, and now you've been physical your whole life, and at 40 years old, you realize this is what my life is going to be. I was pissed. I was so mad at myself. I had all of this resentment, all this stuff. They say you don't know what you got till it's gone, but that's not true. We know what we have. We just assume that we will always have it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the healthy man wants a million things. The sick man wants only one, his health. So if you're listening, especially if you're getting into this world, I understand that there are times that we have to grind and push. There absolutely are. But also understand that that's not always sustainable. And if you feel yourself starting to get diminishing returns, especially physically, maybe take a listen to that and be honest with it. After months of lying in the bed with resentment, with anger, I played the victim for a long time. I was why is this happening to me? I'm a good person. I try to do the right thing. I try to over-deliver. I try to go above and beyond for other people. I put them first. I'm selfless. And if you're honest, you realize that all I'm doing there is placating to that kind of victim mentality. In the end, you have to be radically accepted of what's happening. Because the longer I stay in denial, the longer I stay in anger, the longer I try to bargain and negotiate, the longer I try to alleviate the depression, it was inevitable because I was suicidal, but I couldn't act on it. So I'm grateful that I wasn't. But at that time, I wanted nothing more in my life than death. After months of finally coming to that place, I finally just said, okay, I can either play the victim for the rest of my life, or I can figure out what this looks like. And anger that's pushed inward is depression. That's what it is. And so whenever we're really hard on ourselves unnecessarily, that's where we find ourselves. For me, I had to find something, anything, to replace all this anger and resentment that I had. And for most people, the opposite of anger, of hate, is love. But if I'm really honest, I didn't have a lot of that around me. I was very isolated. I was kind of put in a corner. So I had to find something that I could actually take physical action on. And for me, that was like real, no bullshit gratitude. And I know people talk about gratitude, but I want to get the caveat of what I see, what I've seen in some people, and what I do when I work with people that are going through stuff. I've seen people that will sit on their hands and their world is chaos and they are not taking any ownership or accountability. They're not trying to change anything. They're just allowing stuff to happen to them. And they'll sit on their hands and they'll say, oh, but I'm grateful. And all that is a glorified, they've tried to martyrize their hardship and they haven't lifted a finger to try to change it. Gratitude is a verb. It's something we have to take action on. Even Acta Non Verba, actions, not words. You don't give action. You have to take action. You have to go out and execute against it. Mm-hmm. You have to put energy, emotion, intention behind that. And if you don't, you're going to end up finding yourself in the same sort of circles over and over again. The gift of adversity is to not put yourself in the same position repeatedly that makes you suffer more adversity in the long run. So get in front of it now. For me, I had to understand that gratitude also to me means I can be happy that something happened irrespective of whether it helped me or not. So when I see you winning, like I love that. And I am grateful that you're winning. And I'm grateful that you're out there pushing and inspiring others and doing the work. That's what I love. That's why we're talking. But so many other people will be in this place and they'll say that they're grateful. But then as soon as there's any real adversity, they fall apart. For me, the gratitude that I had to find was, did anybody benefit from my injury? And for literally months, I was like, no. I had just been given a team at that point, and I was in the light infantry. So we were about to go to Afghanistan. And for those that don't know, for every one man that is injured in battle, it takes two to pull him to safety. So my gratitude was, if we'd have been out there in a hot zone, that means my team would have been compromised had I been injured, because I believe this injury would have happened irrespective of where I was in the world. So that means my team would have been compromised. That means another team would have had to cover down. That means there would have been a helicopter that would have had to fly into a hot zone to get me. And so that means there would have been dozens of people's others' lives put in that place. And listen, when we sign up, I understand we signed the paper. We know what we're getting into. But for me, that was one thing where I was like, I'm grateful that nobody else was injured. And that was the beginning. And after I had, when I say 360 gratitude, like no BS gratitude, is because I see people now that will guilt themselves into gratitude, that will gaslight themselves into gratitude, that will say, oh, well, all these people are having, in other places are having all this hardship, I should feel grateful. No, don't reduce what you're going through. Adversity is relative and it's not a competition. So whatever hardship you're going through, understand that it is true, but at the same time, understand that there are other people that have gone through it, and probably more, with less reserves, with less intelligence, with less experience. And I'm not saying that to say, suck it up, buttercup, but I am saying that you can do this. And the sooner that you accept that and take accountability and take action, the sooner that you do those things, the sooner you can begin to actually make a difference. And once I had that very real, no BS gratitude, because we can cherry pick all the stuff in our life that we like. Oh, I get to be on a podcast with Angela. Oh, I'm successful in the business as well, and my family is happy and healthy. Of course, it's easy to find gratitude then, but that's not when you need it. You need it when it's tough. You need it in the darkest night of your soul. You need it whenever it feels like there's no way you're going to get through this thing. And then you say, is there anything in this? And in the heat of it, in real time, lots of times we can't find the gift in it. That's okay. You don't have to. But when it's all said and done, if you take ownership of who you are and what you're doing, the only meaning that adversity has is the meaning that you decide to assign it, period. And once you understand that, I can say this is going to be an empowering catalyst to make me better, as opposed to this thing that keeps me in this victim mentality. Once I had that very real understanding, about 2 weeks later, I started getting feeling back in my fingers, a little bit of movement. Now, it wasn't a lot, and it was an up and down process. I've told you this, but something I don't talk about in the TEDx or the book is I did started feeling back in my fingers, both in my hands and my feet a little bit. And that's when they actually started to give me physical therapy, because at that point they just given up on me.
Right.
This is what happened though. I started getting hubris. Took my eye off the ball. I started getting arrogant about it. I started getting that soldier chip on my shoulder. See, I knew I could walk this off. They said I overcame death. I can overcome this, right? And when I did that, I felt that shift go back to me, I can't wait till I get out. My life sucks. I'm going to be better. Wait till I do these things.
Hmm.
And when that happened, I kind of stagnated, and eventually I started to regress.
Hmm.
And I've talked to different people. I've talked to different doctors. I have a chiropractic neurological background. Correlation is not always causation. I get that. But for me, once I went back through the 5 stages again and had radical acceptance and radical no bullshit gratitude, that's whenever I started making progress again. And once I saw that, I just never looked back, because I never want to be in that place where I'm kicking myself in the ass for thinking that I could have got it done today when I could have waited till tomorrow, telling that person that I love them, having the conversation with somebody that I care about, pouring into people that I actually want to win. I want everybody to win. But if you're a young entrepreneur or a young leader, you understand that there is only so much you can do, and there's only so much you can give. So if you want to fill your own cup before you give it to others, you have to understand how to condense what's in your cup so that now you can give out more without it draining you. Because once your vessel is empty, now it's hard for you not only to help others, but more importantly, you can't keep yourself together. And when you have people depending on you, you're literally letting them down. So don't be a hero in some of those capacities.
That's great. So kind of 2 things here. So I'm curious where the mix is. So some people do nothing, like you said. They talk a lot, but they don't do anything. And then some people are burning out because they're doing too much and they have nothing to pour from. Where's the line, and how can you tell if you cross the line, and where you need to maybe work harder and maybe like be more filling your own cup, as you put it? Self-love is kind of the word, but I think you're better at explaining it.
Yeah. So, and that's a great point, because I do see it seems like it's this blue collar, just grind, or just sit on your ass and hope that it's going to happen. The reality is we need both of those, but those are, as you're saying, the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have to get to either one of those directions, hopefully. Having said that, we were talking before, there's so much information out there. There's so many great people that we can learn from. You and I have learned from them. Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, all these incredible people, right? But what they're giving us are the things that work for them on their journey. And some of the stuff that works for them now may not work for us where we are on our path.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the things that they're going through may not be something that we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, before we build anything else, before we say, I'm going to use Ed's method here and Andy's method here and David Goggins' method here and Brene Brown's method here and Jocko Willing's idea here and Jerry Colonna's idea here, you have to have a foundation of what matters to you,
right?
What you're willing to kill and die for. And then instead of dying for it, live your life around that. Once you had that foundation, now you can start applying these things. Bruce Lee was most people don't understand it, but he was more than just a martial artist and a superstar. He was an entrepreneur. And his philosophical notion from Jeet Kune Do, his martial art, was absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and then add what is specifically your own. So you will find you and I have a great energy together. Whenever we see each other, we want to hug on each other and we want to love on each other, because we're very much cut from that same cloth, the energetic background. Having said that, there are going to be some people that you can feel drain you. You can feel that they kind of suck things from you. When they walk in the room, you can see everything change. And that's okay. But if you don't need to be around those people, or if you don't want to do business with those people, understand it's like, listen, maybe this person gives me 20 grand, but if I have no peace and I can't be present with my loved ones and I can't turn my phone or my cell phone off or my computer off, is my peace worth 20K? My peace is worth $250,000, $100 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have to understand, what am I doing? Why am I doing these things? At the other side of it, there will absolutely be times when everything was going well You will still wake up and there will still be times when it's hard. There will still be mornings when you're sleepy. There will still be times when you barely get through your workout, when you're making your calls and you feel yourself going through the motions. When you feel that, most people are not burned out. They're just working on shit that they don't really care about.
Mm.
So once you start feeling that and you feel that for more than a few days in a row, step back, take a breath, and detach and say, here's what I find. I've got CEOs that have huge companies, a lot of money. But let's say, Marcus, how do I keep going? And the question is not that. The question is not how do I keep going? The question is, am I doing this for the right reasons?
Mm.
And if you are doing it for the right reasons, you will find that the hardship, the adversity that you're going through right now is something that you can overcome. But if you ask yourself, am I doing this for the right reasons? And you're chasing, like I said, some money because you put yourself maybe in the not a right spot, or you're chasing like an artificial metric that doesn't make any sense to you. Maybe even like vanity metrics, like BS on social media. If that's what you're doing, then why are you wasting your time getting good at things that don't really matter instead of working on things that could be? Or how about this? In the West, what do we always do? We add. I have to add this to my routine. I have to do more of this.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this. How about you subtract some stuff that's not serving you?
Mm.
How about you pull away one thing that maybe takes an extra 10 minutes of your day and use that 10 minutes to just detach, breathe, go for a walk, step outside, meditate, breathe, pray, do a mantra, whatever it is. But give yourself those pieces. People, I'm sure everybody here has heard about the 80-20 principle. Pareto's principle, but most people are not surgical with it. So if you can be very honest and, okay, so we'll use some of the Arete stuff. Andy Frisella, he has a power list. There's 3 things that if I get these things done today, I will move the needle. And if everything else falls apart, if I get those 3 things done, I've won. Now, there are days when we barely get those done and it's like a quarter till midnight before we click the last thing off. Good. There are some days that we get it done before noon. And now we have the rest of the day. And if we feel that we can keep attacking the day, then we go and we push. But if you're like, you know what, man, I feel myself. Yeah, I'm tired. I feel myself. I would love to take my wife out for lunch. She has time. We have time. Let's do it. Now, what am I doing? I'm feeding myself, feeding my soul. More importantly, I'm cultivating a genuine relationship. I'm continuing to do that. And when we can do those things, now that gives us the capacity to make whatever is in our cup much more condensed, much more powerful. And now we don't have to empty it every single time there's a small fire that needs to be put out.
So good. I love that. Been actually the podcast this morning, one of the ones I listened to, I'm like, who was it? It was John Maxwell or something. I was talking about like white noise and taking breaks during the day. So that's been a huge, huge shift for me that I've really been working on. So I love that you share that for those that are, high achievers. Now, what about those that, because I know I work with a lot of entrepreneurs upcoming, wanting to be getting out of the employee thing. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with actually doing the work on the day. So doing those 3 things or those 5 things or one thing that actually moves their business forward every day when they don't feel like it. So what are some tips for someone that, they do want to get better, but instead of basing their life on feelings, how can you help someone base their life on not on feelings, but on activity or their goal or their purpose, or I don't even know how I would put it, but you know what I'm asking.
I absolutely do. For better or for worse in the military, we were always sleep deprived. We were always underfed. We were always potentially dehydrated. We were always under a lot of stress. I'm not saying that that's how we should be, but the great thing is that's why when you see people like Jocko and these ex-military guys, they wake up in the morning and they understand that that's just the norm. Now, am I saying that you should feel tired all the time and that you should feel depressed all the time or whatever this physical emotion is? No, you shouldn't. But you should be honest enough. If you're wanting to step into this world and be a professional, act like a professional. Don't act like an amateur that wants to be a professional. Okay. The professional, if you're familiar with Stephen Pressfield's work with The War of Art, anything that he's done, he says the pro is the one that gets up and executes whether he feels like it or not, no matter what the weather's like. Adversities doesn't care about your emotions. It doesn't care about your opinion because it doesn't have anything to do with it. Either you want to do this thing and you figure out how to do it, which means you take accountability and ownership and say, this is going to be hard. I get it. Or you default back to this place of the opposite of acta non verba, where it's verba non acta, where they just talk. The reality is, if you're really honest with yourself, think about how many times in your life that you have felt perfectly primed to do what needs to be done. Many times you just got up and went to school in the morning, even though you didn't feel like it. You went up and you had that conversation, though you didn't feel like it. So I'm not saying that you have to hate your life, but I am saying that you have to be realistic enough to understand that it will take work. And every person that you listen to, that you believe in, that you buy things from, or because of, has been in that place. They're tired also. They've been tired before, and yet they execute it. So the 99% of the people that are not winning the way that they should be are simply hoping that all the lights are going to be green, all the path's going to be clear, it's going to be perfect, it's going to be 72 and sunny, and that they're going to have plenty of people supporting them and rallying them on. Listen, especially if you're beginning, you are never going to receive praise, recognitions, or a pat on the back until you no longer need it. And even when you do, at that point, it won't matter because you've already been to this place of success. You and I have been around people like this. Mm-hmm. When Ed and Andy shake your hand or give you a hug, they do it for us. Why? Because they recognize in them who they were at our place. Mm-hmm. Like recognizes like, game recognizes game, warriors recognize warriors. And even if they're from completely different ends of the spectrum or different places, mm-hmm. you see it, you sense it, you feel it. And that's why when they see us, they're excited to. And that's why you want to have those kind of relationships. And that's what we have to do. I'm not going to glorify it. I'm not going to say that it's easy and fun all the time. But I am going to say everything that you want is on the other side of adversity. And every person before you that's ever succeeded has faced what you're facing now. And again, probably more. Mm-hmm. Ed and Andy, they were making their businesses before there was this thing called the interwebs. Mm-hmm. Before there were real books, other than like old school hardcore books, which are still very useful. But they had to read a book physically, take notes, dog ear that thing, highlight that thing, beat the crap out of it, and then come back to it and say, okay, am I really applying these things? Mm-hmm. So get out there and fall down. Get out there and try. Winston Churchill says, when I was 20, I used to worry about what everybody thought. When I was 40, I stopped caring about what people thought. And then when I was 60, I realized that nobody was thinking of me at all. Nobody's really, they may look and see it, but most people today are so self-absorbed with their own lives that they are going to maybe see it, probably not comment on it. Tony Watley says you have to earn haters. You have to go out and do enough things that make impact that some people are offended by your success. So be it. At the end of the day, the entrepreneurial path, especially beginning, feels sort of lonely. And feeling lost on your path is part of your path. But what I'm saying is this is the rite of passage, and this is how adversity guards anything worth of value. It's not going to give it to you easily, because here's the thing. If it were easy, you wouldn't respect it. You wouldn't appreciate it. And the people that you get there with a very low barrier for entry are not the people that you want to be around. So that's the way I look at it. And if you're new to this game, or if you've been doing it and you feel like you're stuck, this is how we get there. Step back. What do I really want? What can I slip away? What can I cut away? Bruce Lee says to hack away the inessentials. If we're honest, there's a lot of inessentials around us. And once we can get rid of that, that saves us a ton of emotional energy. Again, even 10 minutes a day, right? Over a week, over 7 days, that's an hour. Over a month, that's 4 hours. Over a year, that's over 50 hours. That's a 40-hour, regular civilian 40-hour work week plus 12 if we just trim away 10 minutes of excess bullshit that is not serving us during the day. And what if that were 15? What if that were an hour? What if that were all these things? I'm just saying, be very honest. That introspection is what most people miss, that reflection. And with my injury, I had this huge wound of being injured. And for most of us, the idea is we're like a child. We burn our finger on a stove and we want to get away from that hardship, that adversity as fast as we can. Mm-hmm. For me, I couldn't. I had to sit here. So I'm like, well, I might as well look and see what caused this wound, what's in here. Maybe I'll get something out of it. And honestly, at 40, there's no other way I would have done that. I was very philosophical. I studied martial arts my entire life. But here's what I found, and that's what I want everybody here to understand. I used to pat myself on the back for being smart. I used to be able, and I still can, but even back then, 12 years ago, I could quote Marcus Aurelius, I could quote Epictetus, I could quote all these great philosophers or religious people and leaders, and it would make people go, "Oh, wow!" And I wanted them to acknowledge the fact that I knew something smart.
Mm-hmm.
But knowledge that is acquired but unutilized is the equivalent of ignorance. Just because I learned something does not mean that it's wisdom. If I learn something and then apply it, now I have understanding and context, and that's where the wisdom comes from. So stop learning a bunch of stuff that you're not going to use. As a matter of fact, if you're listening to us now, and I put a gun to your head, I was like, what is 2 things right now that you should be working towards? Every single one of you probably has at least 1 or 2 things. You're like, well, I need to work on sales. Well, I need to work on this.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. The answer that you seek is found in the adversity that you're currently avoiding. Mm-hmm. So understand that it will be hard, accept the fact that it will be hard. And this is the irony. The sooner that you accept that it will be a difficult path, the easier it gets, because you just acknowledge. On my way in here, I was a little bit later than I wanted to be, even though I was in plenty of time. There was traffic. But I leave early. Yeah, I leave early in anticipation of traffic. But had I just said, okay, it's going to take me this amount of time to get there, and then I leave at that amount of time and I hit traffic, now all of a sudden I'm stressed out. Whose fault is that? Mine. So be a pro. Stop acting like an amateur. If you want to be a pro and make what a pro makes, do what a pro does. Also understand that the people that we see, Ed, Andy, all these other people, anybody that's even 5 years ahead of you, you've seen 5 years of work of them applying these things day in and day out. So if you're an amateur and you think that you're just going to get into this thing and grind for 6 months and try to get rich quick and exit, I hate to tell you, but chances are you're being used by somebody else to forward their agenda or their business. And then at the end of the day, you're the one that's done all the work. And now you're like, now what do I do? I'm burnt out. I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. And there's a lot of people that are kind of in that place. So if you have a business that you're trying to use to replace your current income as a W-2, understand that this will be a long journey, but also understand that the sooner that you accept that, the easier it is. If I'm on the freeway and I don't expect traffic and I hit it, it like destroys me. But when you just say this is par for the course. So again, if you wake up, you're attacking something, you're like, man, I'm a little bit tired, par for the course. Man, I ran into something at the last minute. There was a snag at the 11th hour. Adversity, it's par for the course. This is what we do. Here's the other part. Would you rather live a life of quiet, mediocre desperation that's so easy to see every day? You know what your 9 to 5 is every day. No expectations, nothing new. You live for the weekend. You love Friday, you hate Monday. You talk about it on social media. What's that doing? That's not serving you. That's not making you better. That's not inspiring other people to want to work with you or buy from you or be around you. And if you don't have a business or you don't know what it is yet, find somebody or something that really fires you up that you love and help them be a part of that. Be a part of their business, be a part of their group, join whatever it is that they have. There's a lot of stuff out there that's free. There's plenty of books, there's plenty of stuff out there. What I'm saying is stop thinking that reading something or hearing something once is enough. I can't tell you how many people have said, Marcus, when I heard you speak, I've heard what you say from other people, but the way you said it was different. That's the idea. I mean, chances are we have the truth already. The idea is, can you understand what truth is the most important for you? Can you prioritize that? And then can you execute against it ruthlessly for a couple of years and then see where you are? That's what we have to do. That's what an entrepreneur does. That's what a leader does. That's what a co-founder does. So understand that and just get used to it. Pay the price, guys, because believe me, on the other side, it's absolutely worth it.
I love that. It's so cool. I know we could go on, but I always ask 3 final questions and then anything that we didn't touch on to wrap up. So first final question, and you kind of went through some of this, so it's cool. So someone's looking for their purpose. What's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
Experience a lot of things.
Love it.
It's hard for me to tell somebody what their favorite food is I can tell you what mine is, but they have to go out and experience them. And so that's what it is. And here's what will happen. You'll find pieces of all these things and they overlap like a Venn diagram, they'll dovetail. And you'll find an expertise or a skill set you got from one area that will lend itself to something else, which will blend nicely with this. And then that compares into your life purpose. The thing too is it's hard to find your life purpose at 18 or 21. My daughter right now, she's actually taken the semester off of college. She's like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. And I support her in that because it's impossible to ask somebody, you know my story, even at 40, it took that to make me really find direction. And then it took me 12 years of work after that to get to the place we are right now where we're speaking.
Love it. Number 2 question, and I'm sure there's lots, maybe not, but what's your favorite quote and why?
I would say adversity is a gift. That's my quote, and that's self-serving. Quotes, for the most part, I like using them as a way to just keep me honest. I think Marcus Aurelius' quote of saying that you have control over your mind and not outside events. Understand this, and you will find peace. I love those. I also love Epictetus, another Stoic, who says, don't tell me your philosophy, embody it. Like, demonstrate it. If you say that you're a Christian, if you say that you're this, if you say that you're that, people should know by your actions. Actions, not words.
That's good. I love it. And third, a final question is, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone? I guess it would just be, I don't know. I guess it could be husband. I guess it could be love. It could be a lot of things. This is going to sound morbid, but my gravestone is for the people that are alive, not me. I'm not going to be here. So the impact that I make and the word that's on their heart after I go, that's what I want on there. And they're going to be the ones that know what that is. Hopefully it's something like love. Hopefully it's something like impact. Hopefully it's like something that says care or father or husband. Yeah, I love that. So if you run into someone in a coffee shop and they're like, hey, Marcus, that was awesome. I'm going to try to take some action while looking after myself and like mix the two things together. What's something we didn't touch on that you just think you want to leave our listeners with? I would say understanding that the way that we talk to ourselves in our internal dialogue is the way that we will eventually talk to people close to us. So if you're beating yourself up all the time, you have to be careful that eventually that will seep out around the edges to other people. I know a lot of leaders, males and females, that are like, I give all of my, I've got my huge team and my family. I give them all kinds of empathy. I give them all kinds of space. I give them all kinds of grace. But if it's them, no, I don't need that. That's what I give other people. So sometimes the person that needs your own pragmatic empathy the most is yourself. We're human. We mess up. The reason why we follow principles instead of people is because principles are unchanging and people are fallible. The sooner we accept that people are fallible, we can take everything they say with a grain of salt and not take anything personally. You and I have been in this industry enough to where we've seen people that you see them on social media and you think one thing, and then you get to hear or see them and you're like, this seems like diametrically opposed to what they're talking about. And that's not that they're hypocrites, but that they're human and they're fallible and they mess up. I love that. So good. Guys, make sure to share this. I know you're going to want to share this. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, reach out to Marcus. We're going to have all his information in the show notes. Of course, I know he's super helpful. So if you have any questions, you want him speaking at an event, check out his book, get his book. I have it. It's awesome. Do all the things because doing the things is where you start to get the power. So really appreciate you being on. Let's go out there, guys. Let's change one life or one starfish at a time together. If we can change one life at a time, together we can change the world. Thank you so much for being on, Marcus. Thank you.